We're recording.
Okay, welcome everyone. We're in the Whitman Finance Committee meeting. Today's Tuesday, June 16th, 7 o'clock. We're broadcasting virtually from the Zoom platform. Everybody, you got a copy of the meeting agenda by email? I'll just make a quick pass through it while we're waiting for Rosemary to log in. Meeting minutes. Samantha has provided several meeting minutes. We have 4 that are outstanding tonight. We have March 17th, we have May 6th, May 26th, and June 9th. So hopefully we can get those meeting minutes voted. Reserve fund stands at $30,314. Public forum is temporarily suspended due to the COVID-19 restrictions. Anybody tuning in or viewing this meeting who wants to send a question or a comment is welcome to send an email directly to me, and I will get it into our next meeting agenda if necessary. My email is randerson@whitman/ma.gov. You can also call my home phone, 781-447-4366, if there's anything that you want to get, like I said, to the full committee. Under new business, we have line item transfers. The agenda has Whitman Fire Department. We also have another line item transfer for review. Both were emailed to the full committee today. Anybody not receive them? So hopefully we can address them in tonight's meeting. Also under new business, we have Vice Chair Dave Cadero's concerns from his June 11th email. Under old business, subcommittee reports, Building Facilities Capital Expenditure Committee and the Regional Agreement Amendment Committee. Neither group, I don't think, met since we met last, so there probably won't need to be an update. Also under old business, we're going to review the annual town meeting warrant, vote recommendations, go through Article 2. We're pretty much on our way. I think we could probably wrap up both documents tonight. And also under old business, media outreach. Other business, we'll get an update from our town administrator. And we do have one communication, I believe, from the regional school district. Upcoming meetings. I posted for June 30th, July 7th, and July 21st. Here's Rosemary now. So.
Got it.
And so I did not post a meeting for next week. Hi, Rosemary. Welcome to the meeting. We're just reviewing the agenda. So we're pretty much at the end of the review. Did you get a copy of it by email?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Let's be on time, please, okay?
So we have the annual town meeting is now posted. Well, right now we have a save the date of July 27th. It still needs a second vote from the Board of Selectmen. Is that correct, Frank? Because it
actually, the Board of Selectmen has already voted. The moderator, under the authority granted under the COVID-19 emergency relief, has the authority to postpone the town meeting, which he has done. And he has also indicated in that announcement that it will be further postponed to July 27th. At which point we will meet.
Okay.
He is entertaining having the meeting outdoors.
Oh,
I should mention that.
Okay, Al, you had a question on this?
That's the question. This is the town meeting, correct?
Yes.
Annual town meeting, yes.
We have is it Rockland next week and Hingham is the following week?
I don't know.
Could be. I'm not following them.
Well, I see the signs up everywhere. I'm just concerned why we're delaying the town meeting, that's all.
Well, I think it was a collective decision, right?
Decision was made collectively by the Board of Selectmen,
Yeah.
the fire chief, the Board of Health director, and the moderator, that it would be better to wait until July to provide for safety.
No, that's fine. I'm just asking, Frank, that's all. You know, I don't want to see one in September or October, you know?
I agree.
Yeah. It does pose some interesting issues as far as being on a 1/12 budget for the town too, now that we're moved in July as well, so.
Well,
Right.
if I'm not mistaken, the big reason why is just because you expect to have a large number of people attending this meeting, or the potential for it. When we're having the meeting in Abington, we have a reduced quorum to 50, so it's easy for us to sit in a place like the PAC,
Right.
like a high school, and we'll be lucky to get 50 because all we're doing is the budget. But because of the nature of our budget this year and what's going on with Whitman Yancton, we're
Massive.
likely to get a massive crowd. So I think, you know, in order to do it safely, the outside route might be the way to go.
Yeah. All right, anybody else have any other questions on the topics for the agenda? All right, we'll move right into the meeting minutes. Meeting minutes, so we'll start with the March 17th meeting minutes.
I'll be right back.
Okay, take your time. Go ahead, Kathleen.
I'd like to move to table these minutes because it was an important meeting and it's 3 months ago. And if I could have access to the recording when it was the night that Ernie Sandlin presented the information on the middle school feasibility study. And I know I had some questions and my name is not mentioned in that part. So I'd like to make sure I have an accurate quote of what I actually asked Ernie and what he said back to me. So I moved to table the minutes.
Okay, we got a motion and a second discussion. Samantha, can I just get you to chime in? Perhaps it would be easiest, instead of providing the recording, is if you could research the meeting minutes to find the topic of the discussion that Kathleen's looking for. That simplify the process. Is this a meeting that's on our recorder? Samantha, you muted.
I'm right here. It's on the recorder. So it's not easy for me to download and send anybody the recording.
Mhm.
I would probably actually have to physically give it to you.
So Samantha, could it be possible that you could find the information Kathleen's looking for if she can email you offline and give you a sense of the topic that she's looking to have incorporated into the meeting minutes?
Yeah.
Okay,
Kathleen, are you happy with that idea?
that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything that they want to get from the March 17th meeting minutes? And yet, a very good point. The meeting took place a long time ago, and let me just explain why we're now getting to this particular meeting when we have approved meeting minutes for 30 meetings since then. The fact that the recorder was in the town hall, in the finance committee meeting room, when the effects of the COVID-19 took place and we went to a virtual format. So I just retrieved the recorder this week or last week and brought it to Samantha's house. So that's why she's just getting to this meeting minutes. That's, and you know, so good point. If you want to take some extra time, I think it's a good idea to table to get the information. Dave.
Just a parliamentary question. I had asked in the past what our policy was in regards to recordings, and it was my understanding that our recordings were, you know, for the use of the recording secretary, and that's all. So you know, I'm not sure if this, you know, violates our policy.
So Dave, this is for the recorder is going to be used by the recording secretary to get the information that one of our members is looking for. So the policy is not changed. It's still the same.
Rick, perhaps I can add a little light to this. The public record law defines any record, electronic or otherwise, as a public record. While recordings may be used for the sole purpose of taking minutes and then deleted when completed, if a request is made for a recording while the recording exists, it then becomes a public record.
Okay. But in this particular instance, what we're going to do is have the recording secretary get the requested information from the recording and provide it to the finance committee member. So if in fact you wanted the entire recording, as Frank says, that it's your option, but I think it's just easier if you just get the information from Samantha. So Dave, does Frank's explanation help you define what our policy is? Because our policy is in tune with whatever is the legal policy for this board.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Thank you.
And
All right.
just for clarification, once meeting minutes are approved, I delete the recording.
That is our process, yes.
Right, so just in case anybody wants to know that, as soon as meeting minutes are approved, I delete the recording, then it's not saved.
Thank
Right.
you.
Where this is not where March 17th is still available because they're not approved. So just so we're clear on that.
Yep, thank you, Samantha, for clarifying that. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and further discussion on the meeting minutes for March 17th, 2020. We'll move to a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
So just before I continue the roll call vote, just to know that there were 3 absents, Scott, Al, and Ralph. Kathleen?
Yes,
Al?
Yes.
Al, you're being abstained, just because you weren't in present, that's all.
Sorry.
All right. Chuck?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Scott?
Abstain.
Ralph?
Abstain.
And I vote yes. So,
You missed someone.
oh, sorry, Rosemary, go ahead.
Yes, I was there,
Yes, you were. Yes, you were. I apologize. All right, so we have 6:03. Is that correct, Samantha? Samantha, you're muted.
I know, yes, sorry.
All right. All right, so the meeting minutes are tabled, and the information, when it is provided to Kathleen, will be then provided to the rest of the committee as draft form and voted on at the next available meeting. Next meeting minutes are from May 26th, 2020. Everybody have a copy?
not May 5th?
I'm sorry. No, we don't have May 5th. But I am-
No, the BOS meeting minutes are still not available.
Okay,
The May 5th meeting is still tabled until we get the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes and incorporate it into our record. So that brings us to the May 26th meeting minutes. Everybody have a copy? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. So Samantha, just in a general sense, the page numbers are not there because you're not able to get into the Finance Committee meeting room and find out where you left off on the page numbers. Is that correct?
No, it was, I was able to update the page numbers after I completed March 17th.
Okay.
So
Very
I
good.
have gone back and updated all of the meeting minutes with their appropriate numbers. But I finished the 17th after I sent them all out, but everything's all up to date.
Excellent. All right, for this particular meeting, we're going to refer to these pages as 1 through 5 or 6. I think there are 6. So on the first page, May 26th,
you want a motion to approve?
we have a motion from Kathleen to approve.
I'll second.
And Ralph seconds. Okay. Discussion on page 1. Anything that anybody sees that they would like to change, edit, remove?
Good.
All right. Anybody, if anybody needs more time, just put your hand up and we'll stop the train. On the second page. So the second page, we're starting with the warrant articles, beginning with Article 14. Ending on page 17 on that page. Then moving to page 3. Anything on that page? We're moving from Article 18 to Article 23 at the bottom. And on the 4th page, starting off with Articles 24 through 26 and ending with a discussion about background information with Mr. Lineham for Article P8. Anything else?
Just Rick, just the, a brief description on the top of it. I don't have any paper in front of me.
You don't have the copy of the meeting minutes?
Not in front of me. No, absolutely not. No.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to use my wife's computer.
So this particular meeting, we're voting warrants articles. We're voting our recommendations for town meeting. So this discussion, again, we're going back to May 26th, which is a little while ago. We were talking about holding the town meeting at the high school. Then we moved into Article 4, talking about the town department revolving by fund, fund bylaw. And then the end of the discussion, we were talking with Lisa Green about the Community Preservation Act.
No, I'm good with that one, Rex.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and then the final page, we're still in conversation with Lisa Green concerning the the funds for the Community Preservation Act. And then at the end, the final paragraph, I do wish to put an edit in this final paragraph where it starts with Mr. Anderson stated. I'd just like to change that sentence to say that Mr. Anderson stated that he wasn't surprised that selectmen changed their minds and noted that the decision to provide funding to a neighboring town will have a negative impact on Whitman's financial future. So the sentence that's there is a little confusing. So it basically is the same thing I said, but puts it in just a little bit more of a different format.
Okay,
Samantha, you get that?
yep.
Does anybody have anything else on that page? And it ends out just with the will of the Finance Committee to maintaining in a listening phase. And with regard to Article 7, then the meeting adjourned at 9:43.
No, thanks, Rick. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, so any other changes on that page? If not, we'll move to accept the meeting minutes as amended. Roll call vote, John?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Al?
Well, no one made a motion. No one seconded.
It actually was
Move to amend?
No, you have to make a motion to approve the minutes, so there has to be a motion a second. We didn't get that on these minutes.
I moved, I believe I moved. but
Kathleen moved and Ralph seconded prior to the discussion of the meeting minutes.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. So we have a motion and a second. We have a vote by John. We're moving to Kathleen.
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Scott?
Hey,
Ralph?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That's 801. With Scott abstaining. Thank you, Samantha. These meeting minutes are not simple by any means. So that brings us to the June 9th meeting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. I'll entertain a motion to accept the June 9th meeting minutes.
I move to accept.
I'll
Kathleen.
second.
Kathleen and Ralph seconds. We'll move to page 1 of these meeting minutes of June 9th, 2020. Anybody have anything that they want to change? Basically, the meeting was started, this is in June. We're talking about line item transfers at the beginning. Anything else on the first page? Very simple. And then the second page, we're still continue the discussion on the line item transfer issue. The middle of the page, Dave gives an update from the most recent building, facility, and capital expenditure committee. You might just want to add that word in there, Samantha. The capital committee's name has an E in it. You gotta buy a vowel.
Okay.
And then we started to review the warrant articles at the bottom of the page at 7:37. Anybody get any other edits on the second page? We'll move to the third page. This was when we were discussing Article 7. Obviously, a very involved conversation regarding Article 7, a lot of discussion. Then further down, talking about Article 16, Article 21, and at the bottom of that page, Article 24. Does anybody have anything they wish to edit? Chuck?
So about 3/4 of the way down, before we get to Article 16, when we were discussing Hanson's finances, I'm just curious if we need to change one of these words, if they're appropriate, the way we said them. However, Hanson's finances are not unknown because there is no information available to the public. Should it be Hanson's finances? I think we were saying we didn't know them, or they are
Yeah.
unknown.
That's
Is
a
that
double
correct?
negative, so let's take
Yeah.
one of them out, right, for clarity?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Which one
That's
would you
what I
like to
thought.
take out?
I changed are unknown.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could take out aren't, or you could take out un. It's totally up to you.
I took out aren't. I put it are.
Okay,
Are unknown. Hanson's finances are unknown. Okay.
very good. Dave, you have something?
Above that, halfway through that paragraph, on the left, it starts with Mr. Cordero commented that the superintendent has the hardest job right now as he is in a very difficult position due to, and it says the inactions. It's supposed to say both actions and or inactions of the school committee.
Okay.
Okay.
You get that, Samantha?
Yep.
And then,
Okay.
further down, Mr. Cordero wanted to clarify that it was not the town accountants, but it was the former school business manager that was responsible for, and then checking the statutory box.
Hold on a second.
So replace the place that we're in now, and it was responsible for checking the statutory box.
Do you have that, Samantha?
Yeah, I just found it. So you want to take the place where it says where we are in now to just say checking the statutory box?
Correct.
All right, got it.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, very good. Moving to the
What
next
document
page.
would that have been on?
Sorry?
Well, so it says checking the statutory box on what document? Do we know the document name?
That's the DESI form.
On the assessment, yeah, be on the assessment.
Okay.
Okay, very good. And then so on the next page, we're moving from Article 25 at the top. And then at the bottom, we're talking about the express article. There is a typo in the middle of that paragraph where there's an extra S in the word as, which causes a little bit of confusion. You see it, Samantha?
Yeah.
Okay. You can take out the second S or you can take out the third S.
What's up with these typos?
You can talk really fast.
Yes. No worries. Okay, any other edits on that page? Dave? Dave, you muted.
Mute.
3/4 on the way down on that large paragraph, the line starts on why Article 7 is not being recommended, period. The next sentence, Mr. Cordero stated and that he was upset that the article put in the newspaper a second time. But at that point, I didn't express my upset, so I'd like to strike he was upset that. And as you continue down, a few more sentences.
I don't think we're on the, we're on the last page now? Is everybody on the last page?
I thought we were on the last page, yeah?
Okay, go ahead.
Let's see. So as we further go, Mr. Cordero first stated that blah, blah, blah. In addition, Mr. Cordero didn't feel that it painted in the best light. And then again, I'd like to strike as emotions started to escalate, because it wasn't at that moment when emotions started to escalate. It was only, so strike that. And then Mr. Anderson made the decision that the conversation regarding this matter had ended, period, and strike the remaining, because there was no discussion by the chairman to continue this conversation at the next meeting. And then as we go down further, Mr. Cordero disagreed with the decision, and then include and expressed his dismay at being silenced and made a motion. So I think it was just some words and just a sequence issue.
All right, well, Rick did say, when there was so many conversations going on regarding the topic, he did say the discussion stopped, and any further discussions regarding this topic would be at the next meeting.
Oh, okay, perfect.
That did happen. And I will change the bottom, the last sentence with what you said, Dave.
Okay.
What
Okay.
was the final sentence? You want to read it back?
Mr. Guerrero disagreed with the decision and expressed his dismay at being silenced, and then the remaining. I also seem to remember Rosemary discussing something about a coordinated effort with Hanson. Rosemary, do you want to add that into the meeting minutes?
I said, this seems very in sync to what I'm reading is being said exactly at the same time in Hanson, and that seems odd.
But is that something you want the meeting minutes to reflect? It's totally up to you.
I think all meeting minutes should reflect exactly what is said.
Okay. Samantha, did you get the additional sentence?
This is going to be, Rosemary, in due respect, if that's the case, this is now a full-time job.
Yeah, I know. I mean, if you don't feel it's relevant, if Dave feels it's relevant, I just thought I was getting text messages.
It's unusual. Excuse me
Right,
just for 1 second. It is unusual for someone to recommend somebody else's comments be added to the meeting.
Yes, you know something? It doesn't have to be. It's
Okay, I think that would make it a little easier. I think in the future, if someone has something that they want to be included in the meeting minutes that they interjected, that's fine. But I don't think that it's necessary for people to offer amendments on behalf of other people, and especially if they don't want them incorporated into the meeting.
Well, the meeting minutes aren't a record of what should be said and what shouldn't be said. It's what was said.
Well, it also isn't a reflection of the entire discussion from the beginning to end. At some point, there has to be a summary of the discussions. And I think what we have here in front of us is an adequate summary of the discussion. As unfortunate as the discussion was,
There was a topic, there was a discussion that I felt did not relate to finance. So I don't think it needs to be included in the minutes. It is available in the video.
Very good. All right, thank you, Rosemary. Thank you, Dave, for your comments.
Thank you.
All right, so we have the meeting minutes from June 9th.
I have a comment. It's actually along that lines of what you were just discussing. Fifth line down, Mr. Galvin asked if Mr. Anderson was aware of Ms. Ortina's actions regarding the advertisement. I would like the record to reflect Mr. Anderson's answer to that question, which was, I quote, "Yes, I was aware. I am fully complicit, and I made it clear I would help subsidize the cost." I think that's relevant to the answer to my question that I had on in the minutes.
Okay, John, but you're doing the exact same thing. You're suggesting an amendment for somebody who isn't suggesting the conversation be part of the minutes.
But this is, yeah, but you're rewriting history at this point.
We're not tearing down monuments here, Dave. We're writing meeting minutes. It's
The record,
really-
the record shows my question to you, but does not show your answer. which I
Okay,
believe is
so
relevant.
with respect to John's request, I will entertain the additional sentence be added on my behalf because I stand by my statement.
Thank you.
Samantha, could you add that sentence?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, further amendments to the meeting minutes from June 9th. Kathleen.
Could I just ask that we get a cleaned up version of these meeting minutes before we vote on them?
Well,
Good
the
point.
cleaned up versions are submitted to the clerk. All of our meeting minutes are on record as final amended versions. So if you want to get a copy of them, you simply have to get them from the town clerk. So, but I mean, if you wanted a new copy of the meeting minutes, I'm sure that we could provide them if you need them.
Okay.
Is there some confusion as to all of the total amendments that were part of this particular meeting? Because we can review them again, Kathleen.
This particular paragraph has so many additions and subtractions to it that I'm not sure what
Okay.
and I know Samantha will do an amazing job, but I don't know what we've all asked her to add or subtract from this big paragraph.
All right, so Samantha, with all due respect to your time, would you please reread the entire paragraph as you have amended it on the final page?
I'm going to listen to the recording to make the amendment.
Can we table this? So
We
that you can
can.
do?
Yep.
Well, you guys, you talk really fast. You write, I mean, Dave gave me a lot of huge paragraph to write as you kept talking. So what my plan was to go back to the report, tonight and tomorrow and fix this document.
Yep, no problem. I think the complexity of these particular meeting minutes would warrant that they be tabled for a final edit and presentation back to this meeting on the next available meeting. So, Rosemary, do you want to put your thought into the form of a motion?
Motion to the table, Rick.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll second it.
And Rosemary seconds Al's motion to table. Further discussion.
So,
okay, so we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. We'll move to a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Al?
yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. The meeting minutes are tabled to the next meeting. Thank you, Samantha. I know that it's difficult at best to follow along and make edits as we go. So moving on to the new business, we have a line item transfer. We actually have two of them. I'll start with the one that was on the agenda, which was the fire department. This one, just so you know, came today. Was never sent to the finance committee from the fire chief. I asked for it today when I was in the selectmen's meeting and meeting with Frank. So Frank, could you just give us a little bit of an update on this? It has no backup at all, so.
On what?
Line item transfer for 133, all other services, $10,000 to line 140, ambulance billing, $10,000. The explanation simply says that ambulance billing account is deficit due to increased billing revenues.
The ambulance billing account is funded based on anticipated revenues. The company that handles the billing gets a percentage of the revenue received from various billing companies. The more successful we are in collecting that ambulance revenue, the greater the bill. This year, we have collected in excess of $1 million, and that has resulted in an increased cost. I think it's 5.5%, but I'm not certain. The contract does specify what the fees are for handling the billing. So any increase there is a consequence of getting added revenue.
Okay, very good. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the request for the year-end transfer.
I make
Motion.
second.
I got a question, Rick.
Go ahead, we have a motion and a second. Al?
No, just a question. Just why
Yeah,
don't
go
we
ahead.
know why don't we know what the refunds we're getting back or the income we're coming back on the ambulance fund, Frank? Nothing personal.
Because we don't know until we take somebody to the hospital.
But you said how much did we bring in this past year?
Well, the year's not over yet. They're continuing to bill and they're continuing to take in revenue.
Right.
This is a live account. It's Think of it as sales. Every time you make a sale,
Yeah,
you put a portion into the revenue account. That's
right.
what we're getting. There's no way of predicting what that final number is going to be until we've collected all our money.
It's what we
Bill-
collected. What do we build out though, Frank, though? I'm in the healthcare industry itself.
It
and I
isn't
know
based
we
on
bill out,
billing.
what we collect is two different things.
It isn't based on billing. It's based on collections.
Well, even collections too is what we're based off of. I'm just asking.
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking now.
If we send the ambulance out 100 times, what are we expected to bring back in? Projections.
Well, I think, are you looking for an average? Because I would say that
Just an average.
average would probably be 850. Would you say, Frank?
Well,
This is kind of an unusual number.
the estimate on revenues is based on what we collected the previous year.
Okay.
So you know, that's the only thing we can gauge. Every
Right.
ambulance call is different. If it's
Sure.
if it's just a straight transport, it's one fee. If it's
Right.
ALS, it's another fee.
Yeah.
So you know, you can use your past billings as an indicator,
Yeah.
but all that means is you set the budget based on last year's estimates.
Now, does the
This year
fire
we're
department give you
collecting
those
more.
calculations, Frank? Does the fire department give you those calculations, what they did?
They're readily available.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see them all the time.
What we're saying is
Yeah.
this year we need to pay more because we took in more. We could not have known last year that
Oh,
instead
sure.
of collecting 850, we're collecting $1 million.
Sure. No, absolutely.
Okay. Does that answer your question now?
Yes. I'm just throwing it out there. That's
Yeah,
all.
very good. All
Rick?
right, so we have a
John.
motion and a second, John.
Rick? Yeah, so I took the opportunity to look back the last couple of years on what we had budgeted for ambulance billing. And in 2019, we budgeted $35,000. And it looks like, based on the documents that received, we actually expended $45,292. So I'm assuming at some point last year we had a similar line item transfer. I wasn't on the board then, so I
We
don't
did.
know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this year, or 2020, the current budget was for $35,000. And again, we now have another $10,000 request for transfer.
Well,
My
then
question,
he did a poor job estimating
my question is, this year we're also budgeting $35,000 on that same line. So I'm wondering if it would make sense for us to increase that budget line by $10,000 this year, or at least review it. I know we've already approved it, but it seems like the last 2 years we've budgeted $35,000 and we've had to have a line item transfer. I mean, we could even just do it figuring out where the money came from and just switch the lines. You know, maybe take 10,000 from 133 this year and put it into 140 so that we have a little bit more to cover.
Well, this is the fire chief's budget. I think the recommendations that we got from the fire chief are based on what his projections are. I think he's probably more in line to figure out what the projections would be. You know, you're just talking about moving money within his budget. I mean, that's really the responsibility of the budget manager.
You know, it's really a very acceptable way to do it, and it frees the money up for other things, and it's typically going to be there at the end of the year. And as Frank said, it's a good thing. You know, in Duxbury, I did it for a lot of the permitting we did. It was based on a percentage of what we did, whether it was shellfish, beach stickers, or whatever. The more we sold, the more we paid to the company that provided the software for us. So if we had a really good year, but at the beginning of the year, I had to appropriate something to pay them with. And It was great if you had a good year, but at least it didn't, you know, if we appropriate more, you're just tying the money up. And you know, next year could be $35,000.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay. All right, John,
Thanks,
thank you
Scott.
for your comment. Are we ready to move? Any more questions, discussion? All right, so we're looking for a vote for transferring 133, $10,000 to line 140, ambulance billing. John,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, the second one, you should have received this request for a year-end transfer today. This one, the following line item transfer are made pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B, from Article Thumb Latches for Schools to line 224 Veterans Benefits in the amount of $34,273.07. The explanation reads on the request form: benefits for veterans in need has expected the appropriation made for this expense, resulting in a deficit of $34,273.07. When the decision was made in April to continue paying, it was predicated on a transfer being made at the May town meeting to fund those benefits paid. Town meeting has now been postponed to July 27th. If a transfer is not made, it will result in closing the year with an operating deficit. So the backup has a couple of pages, one for the thumb latch expenditure and the other from the expend report for veterans benefits. Frank, would you like to give any other information regarding this?
I think the issue is fairly clear. I seem to recall informing the Finance Committee in either March or April that in March actually, that we were going to have shortfalls in this budget and that we would have to make it up in an article in the special within the annual. Well, the world's changed since then. We don't have a special within the annual, and the annual isn't going to happen until next year. In order to balance this account, we need to take the money from another appropriation. The most logical one seemed to be thumb latches, which we appropriated based on a need, and we ultimately did not have to expend that money because the schools received a grant to pay for the latches and all the doors. So that was my basis for selecting that particular budget to transfer from. Wherever we transfer, we do need to balance the budget by June 30th.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Kathleen, you had a question or comment?
Do we just need to fill in the blank from article fund latches in the amount of $34,273.07, because right now that box is empty.
Yeah, I just thought it was self-evident, the transfer amount.
Okay.
I added that the information on the request form, once it's completely filled out, I'll forward it with that information. Any other questions, John?
So Frank, will that, will you pass over Article P11 now for the 46,000, or could there be more expenditures in the next 2 weeks where we would have to keep a little bit of money in P11 on the floor?
If there are additional expenditures, they will be minimal compared to what we've spent. Most of our expenses are paying substance allowance, and that occurs in the first 2 weeks of each month.
Okay.
So we have paid out. I mean, I suppose we could get a homeless vet and have to come up with $2,000 to put a deposit on an apartment for him, but I assume if we do that, we'll simply come back looking for a reserve fund transfer.
Okay.
It won't be a secret.
All right. So basically you'll pass over P11 then?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. Any other questions, comments regarding this transfer request? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. John?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay. Today is the 16th. All right, Frank, I'll drop those off tomorrow so we can get them to the.
That'll be fine. Thank you.
All right, on the agenda, we have, the next item is the vice chair concerns. Dave did send an email, which I did forward to the rest of the committee, which I will read for the people who have no basis in backup for this agenda item. Rick, since you did not allow me to fully participate during new business at our most recent Whitman Finance Committee meeting, I feel I have no other alternative but to send this correspondence. First, you as chairman have allowed with impunity a current FinCom member to use profanity directed toward another member during an official meeting. I will not repeat such a vile word in this correspondence. Second, you have allowed a current FinCom member during our official meetings to espouse subject matter immaterial to FinCom business that appeared to me more in line with a platform for the Whitman Board of Selectmen. Now you, as acting as FinCom chairman and the FinCom media outreach coordinator, have decided to use private funds to publish in a local newspaper a Whitman-Hanson Regional School District assessment statement, parentheses, quote, the statement. Payment to publish the statement was apparently done without communication with the remaining FinCom members and potentially outside public meeting protocols. I and other FinCom members have disavowed knowledge of your decision until it was revealed to us after the fact during our most recent meeting. It is my belief that among FinCom chairman's responsibilities are to act with the utmost integrity, avoid any potential for impropriety or perception of impropriety, and chair meetings in a manner to avoid the aforementioned. As chairman, your complacency to permit such behavior and inability to identify that such actions at worst may be an ethics violation, or at best have cast a dark shroud of suspicion over the FinCom. This has revealed your ineffectiveness as chairman. In order to work at reestablishing FinCom's integrity, it disheartens me to request your immediate resignation as FinCom chairman. Regards, Dave Cordero, CC the FinCom, the Board of Selectmen, and the moderator. So to that, I replied 6 minutes later, Dave, I will not respond to your irresponsible accusations in this format. Certainly you must have something better to do with your time. Thanks for your email. Sincerely, Rick Anderson. So obviously this is something that I feel is important enough to include on the agenda. So as a general response to the committee, I want to make it clear that I have consistently stated that deliberations on any matter before this committee be conducted in the confines of a properly posted meeting. Accordingly, when I received the email from Dave, I added the discussion to the next available agenda. I will now respond to what I can determine as the three concerns. One, I, as FinCom chair or in any other capacity, cannot control what comes out of anyone's mouth. As far as profanity directed at any individual, this is not something that I condone, nor will allow in the confines of our meetings. So I think your point's well taken, and it is something that is definitely not allowable in the confines of these meetings. Two, your next concern is pretty vague, as it really does not specify what the quote espoused subject matter end quote consisted of. And while you feel that it appeared as a quote platform for Whitman BOS end quote, I will state again, as I do from time to time, that I will always encourage every member of this committee to speak freely without fear of reprisals from any other member of the committee, any elected official or members of the public. I've also said and continue to maintain that there are no political party designations next to the names of these 9 committee members, and partisan politics has no place in the Finance Committee. 3, your statement that the decision to republish the assessment statement in the Whitman-Hanson Express was done without communication to the, quote, remaining FinCom members and potentially outside public meeting protocols, end quote. This does more harm to the FinCom's integrity than any other aspect of the unfortunate situation you have created with your email. I will ask Kathleen to provide the committee with her recent conversation with Desi regarding the content of the article that was questioned at last week's Hanson Selectmen meeting. Just for clarification, the decision to run this guest column was a decision of this entire committee. The facts are that for whatever reason, the editor informed me, and I advised the full committee, that they would not be including the tables in the column. The guest piece made little sense to the general audience without that accompanying information. Kathleen contacted me with her intention to re-request the paper to run the article as this committee originally approved, even if she had to pay for advertising space. I have no regret in telling her that I supported her plan and would even help defray the cost to get this vital information to the taxpayers. It is both ridiculous and potentially libelous to assert that this action was in violation of any ethics statutes or campaign finance laws. So in conclusion, Mr. Cadero, I would ask that if you still have concerns about, quote, my effectiveness as chairman, end quote, or any, quote, dark shroud of suspicion, end quote, you may feel exists, and your stated intention to seek my resignation, I suggest you put it in the form of a motion so that the other 8 members of this committee can have a voice as well. So before I allow you to follow up, I'm going to ask Kathleen, if you will, just to give us an update on your conversation with Desi and how it relates to the article being questioned.
Okay, well, my conversation was very brief because I know the credibility of the data analysis has been called into question, and people in Hanson and other places have referred to a Mr. Robert O'Donnell as the voice of authority, which he is. Rob O'Donnell is the fellow at DESE who sent me the files that I requested back in April to do the analysis. So I called Rob O'Donnell last Friday and I asked him if I was wrong in calculating the Chapter 70 funds by town. And he stated DESE does not publish the data in that format. And I agreed with him, they don't. But I said, am I wrong in subtracting the minimum contribution from the foundation budget to arrive at the individual town's Chapter 70 money? And he said, no, you are not wrong. And that's where we left it. The DESE folks don't want to get involved in the Whitman-Hanson spat. They are professionals, they are bureaucrats who work for the Department of Education. And so I was not incorrect in my calculations any more than I would be incorrect in calculating the per pupil percentages. DESE doesn't calculate percentages. They list the student population by town, and then the towns calculate the percentage by dividing the town's population by the total population. So did I do a data analysis? Yes. Was my data analysis inaccurate? No, it was not. And Rob O'Donnell confirmed that my analysis is not inaccurate. It's just not the way that DESE publishes it.
Thank you, Kathleen. So Dave, I'll certainly invite you to a follow-up. This is your concern. So if there are other concerns or further follow-up that you want to add, I suggest that this is the time for you to do it.
All right, yeah, go ahead, Chuck, I'll wait.
No, I just wanted to say thank you, Kathleen. I had some concerns. I watched the Hanson Selectmen's meeting, and I feel comfortable now that that information was accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
So I did write that email, and I got a response within 6 minutes from the chairman, in which he read. I thought it was pretty unprofessional of you, Rick, stating certainly you must have something better to do at the time. And to answer that, or to respond to that, is I absolutely do. I have a beautiful family that I like to spend time with, but unfortunately, between the time that meeting was held and the time I wrote that email, I received dozens of questions from friends within the town of Whitman asking how 2 members of a finance committee can have discussions and a decision being made outside of open meeting. I had no logical answer for them. So yeah, I do have better things to do with my time. Unfortunately, I was caught up fielding a bunch of phone calls. So one thing that has been just stated is the concern about any potential inaccuracies in the article. I didn't mention anything about inaccuracies. So not sure why that's being brought up in regards to information that I wrote. But what's not being mentioned here, again, is the potential for an open meeting violation. How? Just because writing an article and paying for it may be a legal and ethical thing to do, doesn't make it right. It's like I said before, it's put a shroud of suspicion over this committee, and you know, I've been doing my part to try to get that going, remove that shroud. So if you want to address how two committee members are able to have a conversation without it, in making that decision without it violating an open meeting law, I'll be willing to hear it. Thank you.
Okay, Dave. Well, I guess the question is, how do you feel it violates open meeting law? What parts of the statute are you referring to when you say that it's a violation? That's the crux of your entire concern, I would think, right?
No.
That two people had this discussion. Two people of the finance committee of a 9-member board had this discussion.
Listen,
so tell me, which parts are you concerned with, I guess?
I pointed three things that are wrong. One, you've allowed people to use vile language towards another member. Two, you've allowed a member to stand on a platform and continue to discuss things outside of the responsibilities of finance committee. And three, this is just because it may be right, legal, it doesn't make it right. Like I said, I've fielded dozens of calls asking me why, asking me how, and I have no answer to them.
Well, Dave, we appreciate your commitment in fielding these inquiries. So we expect that you'll continue to do that and put this committee in the best light. Is there anything you want to do to move forward with your motion?
Well, if you continue with this behavior, I'm going to have these phone calls. I'd rather not have the phone calls, Rick. How about you straighten things up?
Okay, I'll do the best I can, Dave. I appreciate your comments. I will try a little bit harder. I mean, to be truthful, sometimes I let conversations go too long. So to your questions or your comments, I will try to make sure that if a comment is not within the realm of the discussion, I will make an effort to end it. But again, I just want to make it clear that my focus as chairman for this committee is that it's a 9-member board. And I will encourage every member to talk about whatever they want to talk about. And if you want to filter out the discussions and put them into specific categories, that's your prerogative. And I encourage you to do that. And if you want to follow up with the people's concerns as they come in, I appreciate you doing that as well. So, but beyond that, I don't really think there's any follow-up that I need to take other than to make sure that we maintain civility and decorum in our meetings. So I respect the fact that you responded. I respect we're having a respectful conversation about the topic, but I don't really want to spend too much time on this as we still have business to conduct.
So, all right, I'll just finish it like this. So you've asked me what statute do I think is in violation? Let me ask you, what statute do you think you're not in violation of that supports your ability to have finance committee discussions outside open meeting? What is that statute that allows you to do that?
I can't answer your question, Dave.
Yeah, neither can I. And a lot of people are wondering what that is.
I'll have to get back to you, Dave, because you're asking me to cite a specific statute for something that's not a violation. That's a very confusing task. I'll move to Rosemary. She had a question.
I was under the impression that we voted to put the full article in the newspaper. The partial article, not what we voted, went in, and that the member, the outreach coordinator and the chair found a way to follow through on what we voted for. That was what my impression was.
It was a paid advertisement. That's the whole issue. It's a paid advertisement. Just because say if it is in no violation of anything, it doesn't make it right. Again, it creates a shroud of suspicion, a shroud of impropriety over this finance committee, and the the ability to try to bring back the integrity of this committee is going to be hard fought.
It's all on your shoulders, Dave. We're really counting on you.
So is that your resignation, Rick?
No. If you want me to resign, you'll have to probably start with a motion, Dave. You want to make a motion and get a second and take a will of the board for my resignation?
Just
I would
quickly,
invite you to do that.
I'll go ahead and do that. I'd like to make a motion for Rick to provide his resignation to this board. Anybody want to second it? All right.
just
Is there a
quickly,
second?
no.
Go ahead, Rosemary.
So I'm just trying to understand this. We have no problem. We voted for something, and there was no problem that the incomplete article went in the newspaper that was very confusing when the charts were pulled out. I mean, I had a bigger problem with it not being put in as we voted. But when Kathleen, who is not politically affiliated with any party or anything, sought to take steps to complete the task that we voted on, and made a small mistake, didn't understand that finance aspect, we have we all of a sudden are, it's very, it's hard to follow. It seems.
All right, well, like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on it because well, I did put it at the beginning of the meeting because if I'm going to be asked to resign, I'd rather do it at the beginning of the meeting than at the end of the meeting. But for the purposes of this committee, I would suggest that this conversation, unless Dave, you have something new to add, I'd like to move on to old business.
Well, you have a committee member that's confused. It's very simple. You paid to have an article placed into a newspaper. People feel that that's not the right thing to do. The discussion to do that was outside public meeting. Okay. Frank, you've had a lot of experience with open meeting violations, not necessarily directed towards you, but what's your opinion on this?
Well, there is guidance from the Attorney General's office that a matter that comes before the committee for discussion cannot be discussed among members if those members comprise a quorum. The advisory further states that what's the word I'm looking for when you run track?
Circumvent?
No, relay. You cannot have a conversation among members that through a relay process involves a quorum, more than half of the membership. So very specifically, if party A goes to B and says, I'm concerned about this, and we need to look at it, and party B goes to C and so on, once you've reached a quorum, you violated the open meeting law. Prior to that, some members can have a discussion with one another about concerns, so long as they don't deliberate on a process that has to be addressed at an open meeting. I would not, if two selectmen were to get together and talk about a concern they had about something in the town, and one of them says to them, I think we ought to talk about that at the next meeting, that's permissible. If they start planning a process, that's a different story. If it's going to affect the operation of the entire board or a majority of the committee. What you have here, and this is strictly my opinion, is two people collaborating to get information to the public. And while it's something that you would want to discuss in an open meeting and actually have discussed in an open meeting, that does not rise to the level of a violation of the open meeting law, in my estimation. But that's just my opinion.
Kathleen, you had a point you wanted to make?
I simply wanted to first apologize for any undue stress this has caused the committee. This was an innocent action on my part, running an idea by the chair saying we need to get these tables in the newspaper. I plan to call the Express, and if necessary, I'll pay for them to provide the space since they've already run the article once. I didn't think of it as taking out a paid political advertisement because it's an educational piece, it's not an advocacy piece. And we had already voted as a committee, so I was not conspiring with Rick. I was simply calling him as the chair to make sure I wasn't doing anything outside of the chair's knowledge. But there was no relay and there was no desire to put anything other than information out in front of the public.
And I think the timeline is something else that needs to be considered here too, is because the publishing date is key. I mean, when we want to get this information into the newspaper, there's a certain time frame that it has to be submitted. As you recall, with the original vote of the committee, we were under a little bit of time restraints to get the full column completed and to the editor in time for publication. As you recall, we couldn't make that happen because publication is Tuesday, and we waited until we could deliberate as a committee Tuesday night to formally accept the column as it was presented. So like I said, I understand your concerns, Dave. I certainly, if you have further issues that regard this matter, we would certainly hope that you'd bring them to the attention of the full board. But to me, I think we've addressed your concern. Are you happy with the answers that you've gotten?
No.
Okay. Is there anything further you'd like to add?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to old business. So subcommittee reports. Building Facility Capital Expenditure Committee did not meet. Is that correct, Dave?
Correct. We're not meeting until after the town meeting.
Okay, excellent. And the Regional Agreement Amendment Committee has also been very silent. There is much work to be done on that particular committee, but no meetings have been posted. So that brings us to the warrant. I know we spent some time on the warrant at our last meeting. Does everybody have a copy of the draft that we were working with?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we just have to revisit one article, Article P5. So in discussing this with Frank a couple of days ago, we came to the conclusion that Frank's suggestion that because now this article is a borrowing funding source, we need to revote the article as a committee because of that fact. I know we have stated that we voted this article 7-0 previously, but I think because, as Frank said, that the funding source now creates an issue where we should revote it. Frank, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, my only point was you voted it as a free cash expenditure, and we're now recommending debt. The recommendation should be made based on the current intent of the article.
Okay.
And I will point out, just in case anybody has any question about it, debt authorizations by town meeting require a 2/3 vote. But I want to be really clear on this one. This is not borrowing by the town.
Mm-hmm.
It's borrowing by the region. And under 7116D, if a region borrows money, they must authorize the debt by a 2/3 vote. The towns simply vote a majority. So the decision at the town level is a majority vote, not a 2/3 vote.
And the region already did that.
Correct.
Okay, so I would suggest then we I'll entertain a motion to rescind our previous vote, and then we could revote this article.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion,
I'll second.
and a second to rescind. Further discussion. All in favor, John?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Ralph? Ralph, we're voting to rescind the.
Ralphie?
I'll take that as a yes. Rosemary?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll vote yes as well. All right, so we have withdrawn our previous vote on Article P5. With the board's acceptance, I won't read the article in its entirety, only the fact that the article is now, the funding source is a borrowing mechanism. I'll state a motion. John, go ahead.
Frank, do we have details on what the terms are of that borrowing?
This is a, what you would call a bond anticipation note. It's a note taken out in series of years. It's a 1-year note right now, and the balance and interest is due in full next year. In the following year, we can pay the interest in a portion of the note, and then extend it another year, we can pay it all off, or we can make plans to amortize it over X number of years. The reason you're allowed to do that is because the feasibility study is partially reimbursable by MSBA. If we move ahead with the project, then we will receive reimbursement for a portion of the cost of the feasibility study, and the balance of it would be rolled into the bond that's ultimately issued for the construction of the school.
So is there no amount then in this budget cycle that we need to, that would have to be part of the debt service? Because it would be next year's where it would be due? Or is there some amount if we say interest, or how? I'm just curious. You know, I saw that there was a little bit of an increase to the Whitman Hanson debt in the new Article 2 that you sent us. It was like $1,000 or something.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that was the interest.
No, that's just apportionment based on student population.
Okay.
The region, we actually, even though the money is being borrowed for Whitman, we have no hands on this debt. It's all controlled by the region. The region borrows, the region is responsible for paying the debt, and they assess us
Okay.
for the payments. The interest can be rolled into the next year, or it can be paid.
So we would see it in next year's assessment then?
Yes.
So there isn't any, it doesn't affect our numbers this year at all?
It does not.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the Article P5? All right, so we have a motion and a second, and we'll take a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
I'm
Kathleen?
confused. What do we have are we now voting to do it by borrowing? We've already rescinded the motion.
Yeah, I think we
The
need,
The
motion.
recommendation.
Oh, yeah, we need a motion. Yeah, correct.
we need a new motion.
Would be to recommend that the town approve an article for Whitman Hanson to borrow $850,000 for the cost of a feasibility study.
I make
I'm
that,
sorry, Kathleen, I could read the article. Typically, we do read the article in its entirety.
okay.
If that's what you want, I will. It's no problem.
No, I'm fine with making the motion or seconding it so we can take the vote.
Okay. All right, so Kathleen moves. Do we have a second?
Chuck seconds.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept Article P5 as it is now drafted in the warrant. And Frank, there will be no amendment on town hall floor. This is the way the article will be presented to the town.
That is the way it'll be presented. I hope there's no reason for anyone to make an amendment on the floor.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion and second. Roll call vote, John.
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So the vote 9-0 or unanimous as it's written in the warrant. I think on the other warrant articles where it's been unanimous, it's written that way.
I will update the warrant to reflect the current vote.
Okay, and then just really quickly to Article 24, Frank. Article 24 will have to be amended as our discussion today on town hall floor, just because of the funding source.
Right. In the warrant, we're saying that it's coming from free cash, and we actually decided to use ambulance funds to support that article. However, when that suggestion or vote was made by the Finance Committee, the warrant had already been posted. So we're not able to change the funding source except by amendment at town meeting.
Okay, so you just want the board to be aware Article 24 will be amended on town hall
It
floor.
was John's fault.
Well, no, my question is, are you expecting currently in what you sent us in the money that you're using from the ambulance fund, you only had like 5 cents left, $4 left or something. So are you foreseeing that the additional billings in June will cover that 57,000?
No, that was included in the estimated number. When the suggestion was made to change the source of funding, I then went to the worksheet and changed it, but I couldn't change it on the warrant. So the 34 cents that we expect to carry at the end of the year does include that $57,000.
So it was updated, John, on the worksheet,
matrix-
not on the warrant.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
Okay, any other questions on that? We don't need a motion, we don't need to vote, it's really just for informational purposes only. And
And for really good news, Article 36, which takes 7 pages of the warrant, is going to be passed over. And I informed the moderator I would announce that before he read it.
that's very nice of you. All right, if we move to the last page of the warrant, too, we just want to talk just a little bit about stabilization fund. And a conversation to talk about what would like to see in these particular line items, Article 37 and 39. Frank.
Well, right now, if everything is voted the way it's presented on the request lines on Article 2 and on the articles that are enumerated in the warrant, we will end up with $823,490 in free cash. For the last several years, we have not been in a position to add to stabilization or to capital stabilization because we had been using free cash to service the debt for the bonds on the police station and town hall. We now have the ability to designate or place part of the free cash into stabilization fund if we choose to do so at town meeting. Obviously, it requires an amendment and a vote by the town meeting members, but that's the purpose of those placeholder warrant articles so that that can be done. So there should be some discussion about whether we want to carry the entire 823 in free cash, or if we might want to put another 100,000 in stabilization and another 200,000, just for example, in capital stabilization, so that we start to once again build up those numbers. While our stabilization account has been well maintained, other than interest earnings, it hasn't increased in quite a few years. But our total budget has increased significantly over those same years. So it might be time to start thinking about trying to build a better base of stabilization. The fact that we see our way to completing a town meeting this year with significant drops in revenue and still having available cash to put away is more a testament to our change in operations than it is to our acumen and skill. We had the opportunity to utilize this year new revenue that previously simply rolled into free cash. So it made it practical for us to put a budget together and still have money available for allocation. The thought process in years gone by for putting money in stabilization is it takes more to spend it. Free cash can be spent with a majority vote. Stabilization requires a 2/3 vote of a town meeting. And that was part of the thought process that went into building that stabilization account. But people had to really consider it. It's something to think about.
Well, in addition to, we have the capital committee who's going to be formulating a comprehensive plan moving forward. It would be nice to have some seed money in that capital stabilization as well. So have there been any discussions with the Board of Selectmen on recommendations for these articles?
We have not met since we've totaled all these up. It's certainly something that can be discussed at our meeting. The board is going to meet next Tuesday for a couple of reasons. We have to submit a 1/12 budget for the month of July to the Director of Accounts at the Division of Local Services. I also have to submit a request to authorize us to use free cash in our town meeting. And the reason for that is under statute, the free cash goes away on June 30th when we close the books. Because of the COVID and Chapter 53 of the Acts of 2020, we are allowed to use our July 1st, 2019 free cash balance and to spend from that, provided we have approval from the DLS. So the Board of Selectmen will also be voting that at our meeting next Tuesday. Both of those things have to happen because without it, our entire budget plan falls apart.
Okay. So with that said, would this board like to move on recommending some dollar figures to be placed into Article 3739 for Frank to bring back to the selectmen for further discussion?
Hey, Rick,
Go ahead, Al.
just say, I thought, do we have any inclination of type of money we're getting back from the federal government because of COVID-19 towards the town?
We will be receiving funds from the CARES Act, which will pay for expenses which are now being categorized as COVID-19 and being carried in a deficit account. And that money will be accounted for in fiscal 21.
Now, is there any additional for the law enforcement and the fire department too as well included in that?
Only whatever expenses are permitted under COVID.
Do we know, I'm just, not that I'd be a wise guy, do we know that figure at all?
No, it's not over yet, Al.
No, I know, and trust me, I know that I'm in the same situation in the healthcare industry.
Okay, Rosemary?
Yes, I had some questions about, it's my understanding that Hanson has voted to use what's called a home rule petition to force Whitman to pay the per pupil amount. How would that affect our savings and the amounts that we have if we are forced to forgo our Chapter 70 financial protections?
I have no idea because I haven't heard, this is the first I'm hearing of it.
Oh, it's happening.
What rule are they filing?
They're filing what's called, let me just tell you what I'm reading, that they're filing a home rule petition with the state with the intent to have us use the pure pupil method is what they've just voted on.
Okay, they can't do that, and I'll tell you why. It's contrary to state law. The legislature will never pass. A home rule petition is nothing more than a special act. It would be part of the acts of 2020 or 2021. But what they're, from what I understand you're saying, the request is to order, pass legislation that would direct Whitman to make payments that are contrary to law. And I don't see I don't even know why anyone would file that. Do you know if it's been filed or if someone's just proposed it?
It was just voted to be filed in Hanson.
Oh, okay. So
last night. their intent
Basically,
is to
they,
file.
yeah, basically they voted to ask Josh Cutler to file a home rule bill that will make Whitman pay 60% of it, all expenses for Whitman Hanson. It's not going to happen. I don't even know if Josh will file it. If I were him, I wouldn't, because it'll never get past. It'll never get past first reading.
All right. Thank you for that information, Rosemary.
It also makes me question if they're still pushing this, if they have the intent to do the 50-50 split. I understand the reasoning John gave last week was sound, but I'm concerned when we do our budgeting that we should keep in mind that it might go to the state in January. So if we could follow the law as it's written.
I think the worst that can happen is if that's Hanson's position, we're not going to get a school budget between now and November, because in order to get a school budget, we are going to have to agree on a method of assessment, and we're going to have to agree on an appropriation. And short of that, it goes into the hands of the state in November. And at that point, when the state takes over, typically they work with the numbers that were last available, last year's figures. And while there was some hope early on that the state might order a higher amount of budget, I don't think they're going to, said they've never done it. So I don't think they're going to do it. So ultimately, the schools and the kids lose.
I'm so sorry. You said they never did it?
No.
They've never done it. Well, I think what they said was they didn't do it in 2020 for this.
Chris Lynch said they've never done it.
Well, we have evidence that they did do it. Correct? Wasn't the Dayton Rehoboth? They gave an above that amount.
And
that was January.
I haven't looked at the numbers.
I can send them.
But I haven't looked at the numbers. But if there were an anomaly that changed the apportionment based on something between the two towns, it still would not have been a budget increase. It probably would have been an offset from one town to the other.
So
We'll figure this out, I'm sure.
Okay. So this discussion will affect how we vote Article 37 and 39, but we'll probably have an opportunity to discuss that further when we get into Article 2. So, your comments obviously are important, and the fact that it's has the potential to affect our budget significantly.
I have a question.
Ralph, did you want to add something?
Yes, I do have a question, because we're talking about the Stabilization Fund. Now,
Can't hear you, Ralph.
Using a company called the Bartholomew Company that managed it. They were doing a heck of a good job, but now I'm curious, how are we paying them? Are they taking a percentage out of the Stabilization Fund, or are we paying them outside the Stabilization Fund?
They get 0.5% of the earnings.
0.5% of the earnings?
Yes.
Okay, because I never did see anything on Article 2 about paying them.
You wouldn't. It's part of the fund's management, the earnings and costs.
All right, I was just curious.
Sure.
Very good question.
That information, by the way, is available. We get quarterly reports from Bartholomew. We have an annual meeting with them every year. We review the funds list. We make sure that our investments are made in what are called qualified funds. And we look at our allocation and appetite for risk. So for example, in the stabilization account, we really have no appetite for risk. That's our savings account. So they're pretty conservatively invested. When you look at the don't mind me, the mind's going.
Join the crew.
The unfunded liabilities, why can't I think of the word? The investment that we have with Plymouth County OPEB Trust, that's a long-term investment. So we're willing to take a little more risk in that portfolio in order to get earnings, because any short-term kick in the earnings isn't going to affect us over the life of the investment because it's planned out over 10 or more years. So there's a little more appetite for risk there. But like I said, stabilization is viewed as our savings account. And we really want to stay conservative on that. So while the earnings are low, they're consistent, and each year we've gained money in it.
All right.
Ralph, would you like to see an investment report for the stabilization account, just as an example? Would that be something you're interested in?
Yes, I would. I'd like to take a look at it.
Frank, could you forward that? Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so back to the Article 37, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer a sum of money to be added to the town capital stabilization account or take any other action relative there too. So Frank did mention 300,000 as a place setter, discussion starter, however you want to describe it. And then for Article 39, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer a sum of money to be added to the town general fund stabilization account or take any other action relative there too. And the discussion was for 200,000 there. And as you see, we hopscotched right over the technology stabilization account with the expectation that Josh is not tuned in to this particular meeting. So I know he would like to see some money put in that account. Is that true, Frank?
That's true, but we have to look at the big picture.
I hear you. Yeah. So does anybody have any thoughts on where these dollars, Dave, perhaps from the Capital Expenditure Committee perspective on putting some money away into capital stabilization?
I can't make a statement on behalf of the whole committee without going to them first.
Okay.
My personal preference is to see the majority of it go into the general fund stabilization. Only because I think we have less certainty of what's going to happen next year than we have, our fiscal picture, and revenues next year are going to be even less if this COVID pandemic doesn't wrap up, and if we have another spike or we close restaurants down again. We still don't know where the state revenue's coming in. We just know they're in a big hole.
Sure.
We don't know what I know the HEROES Act is up there that the feds are looking at to try and funnel some money down, but that's in the stalemate, and then it's not going to pass it by the looks of things. So there's no help on the way. I guess it doesn't matter which stabilization we put it in, but to me, I'd be throwing money into general.
In round figures, our capital stabilization is at 349,000. Our general fund stabilization is at 2.7 million.
Okay. So with that, Scott, would you still like to see more money for this particular year be placed in the general fund stabilization account?
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest with you, I think the more the better, but again, to see that up in the $3 million area wouldn't hurt my feelings.
Right. And I agree with Scott that this year is very unique, and next year may present some challenges to us. And the better prepared we are for those issues, the better off we're going to be. I mean, we call it a rainy day fund, but it's been raining.
Right. So I guess just for the committee, I guess get a sense of the committee, we're not really looking for recommendations to be published. We're more or less looking for information and feedback to the Board of Selectmen on general recommendations on what we'd like to see in here. John.
Yeah, I think the number, if I'm correct, Frank said 300 and 200,000 each, however we decide to do it. I think we have to remember that that amount is basically coming into free cash from the indirect costs of the enterprise fund. So theoretically, even though we're allocating 500,000, however we decide to do it, it's not going to reduce our free cash amount, because that's the amount we're getting into free cash from the indirect costs of the enterprise fund, amongst all the other free cash that comes in from at the end of the year. So the amount that Frank said, 823, I don't know, it said 869 in the file we have here, Frank, but that's really unchanged if we do this, because we're getting the 512,000 from the indirect costs into free cash. So sounds like a good place to put that money.
Anybody else? Thoughts? So Frank, do you want to carry that recommendation to the Board of Selectmen? Just a general sense of the board
Sure,
to concur with your recommendation.
I will.
And just for clarity, to say that the 300 is in the general fund and the 200 is in capital? Scotty, you all right with that?
Well, I had suggested 3 and 1 or 2 and 1. I suggested a total of 300 because I wanted to carry, in my mind, I think we should be carrying $500,000 into the next year as part of our budget planning process.
Right, so that's what we had 3 and 2, right?
Oh,
No, 2 and 1.
2 and 1. You got it, 2 and 1. Okay, is that the will of the board? Anybody have any other suggestions, comments?
no.
Okay, I think that does it for our work within the warrant, unless somebody sees something that we missed. I believe, Frank, you'll have all of our recommendations to be published in the warrant. As if you find something else,
I'll
we'll be
let you
meeting.
know.
Yeah.
I'll go over it for the 13th time tomorrow.
14.
At least. Okay, that
Right now where I know what page each article's on.
right. That's pretty bad. Okay, so that brings us to Article 2 discussion, vote recommendations. Does everybody have a copy of Article 2 that we were working on last week?
Yes,
Where we
just waiting.
questioned line items and we voted recommendations on the remaining line items. Frank, you have that information already incorporated into the version of Article 2.
I do.
But for this meeting, we can still work on Article 2, which is dated 6/5 on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, it says Article 2 Fiscal 2021, version 9, 5/31/2020. Does everybody have that copy or some similar version? Okay. So John, do you want to put up page?
Well, I don't have the pages. I have
I
opened
can do
the
it
new,
right now, John, if you'd
well,
like.
I have the new file that Frank sent us the other day that has the updated numbers on it, in which he updated everything, which is
Okay.
6/9.
So we have question line items on page 7, right? Is that the first page
Hold on.
that you have question line items on your copy as well?
Give me a second.
On page 5, actually, we have 2 question line items.
Well, I have
175.
the Excel file, so mine's not pages, but hold on, we can find it for sure.
John, if you do print
Yeah.
preview, it'll give you pages.
I got it.
Okay, so page 5 on the version that we're working from has articles 160 to 190. So I guess you could just kind of scroll to that area, I guess. So there's a way to put page breaks in there, Frank?
Yes. It's
That's
formatted with page breaks.
Yeah, that's fine. I can just.
Okay, well, that's fine. All right, so right now, Article 175 is the first questioned line item, operating expense, Whitman Hanson. So just to go back to the email that was forwarded from the Whitman Hanson Regional School District, and 31 pages of documents that spell out every possible scenario on how the assessment will move forward if it's not approved, if the hybrid method is not approved, if the budget is not approved. So there was a lot of information regarding the 1/12 budget. There was certainly a real lot of information in that particular packet. But right now we have a placeholder for a recommendation of $15,156,235. And from what we were told by the district that represents the amount if the statutory method is used. Frank, is that the information you received from
Yes.
the district? Okay, I'm just trying to make my.
Can I display that document instead of this for a second?
Sure, absolutely.
Give me a second, hold on one. Sorry, I just want to make sure I have the right one.
Oh, I have it right here if you want me to throw it up to them.
There it is right there, I got it. Okay. Everybody, do I have it? Oh, no, I got the article.
it was up there
Sorry,
before.
sorry. That's it.
Right. So H was the document within that 31 pages that referenced the assessment. If in fact we were using the
Just right here.
required budget and 4 teachers of 55,320,238.
Right.
Right?
So I think the number that you've got listed there, the 15,197, is this number right here. But that includes the non-mandated busing, the 401,177. So if I'm reading this correctly, the statutory method number should actually be 14,796,475 based on this chart, because you subtract out the loss.
Strictly operating budget.
Right.
What's that? So
That's right. That would be strictly the operating budget.
Right.
right, but the assessment would be 14,796,475,
Yes.
not 15,197,652, which is the placeholder that we have in Article 2.
Correct.
Does everybody agree with that?
I completely agree with you, John.
Okay.
All right, so we want to make that correction then within Article 2. Well, obviously, it's going to change our total.
Hold on, let
Right.
me stop this share. So it should be 14,796,475. Correct. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Now, with everything that Rosemary said today and with the school committee meeting tomorrow, I'm wondering if we want to put this off till our June 30th meeting to really discuss this in detail.
I am wholly behind that idea. Anybody else?
If that's a motion, then I'll second it, John.
I don't really-
All right, it's a motion.
I don't even really think we need to make a motion. We just won't
Yeah.
discuss that line item until we
Just
get
don't
all.
discuss it.
Okay.
We just need to, get the rest of the information and get back into our listening phase. John, can you tell me one more time how to make the little icon so I can see everyone instead of just 5 out of 9?
You can't while you share.
You see,
You can't while you share?
No, he should be able to. If you look, there's like a little icons that has like, it's probably in the corner somewhere. It's one little line and then a bigger line, then 2 lines, and then a grid of 9. You click the grid of 9, it should allow you to expand the window so you can see everything. I don't know.
I'm going to get 6 when I do that, John.
Hold on, what's that? 6. So there's a 1, 2, 3. You should be able to click it and then expand the window. If you open up the window, you may be able to.
Oh, now I got a big picture of Rick. I got to change that.
Yeah,
I
that works.
That work? Okay, good.
Yeah, now I got it. Thank you.
Good. Yep.
So you gotta hit the icon up the top first, and that where it shows the 9-person grid, and then drag from the corner to make it bigger.
Right.
Right, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so now I can see everybody. So now when we have a document up, I can make sure if there's any questions. I got the full view here. So, so we're in agreement that we're going to just move away from line item 175. The next question line item we have is line number 178. So just a little bit of background here too. I did have a conversation with the superintendent. Just wanted to touch base with him following our vote on Article 7 to let him know the direction of the Finance Committee, and also to invite him to one of our meetings in July so that we could, you know, maintain the communication line and also see if we can get this non-mandated busing on a line item 178 and talk about that a little bit more in detail. He did say that he was sending a mailing out to the parents regarding what their intentions with busing were. So I think it's a good start, obviously, to get some information from them on, you know, because with this whole COVID-19 thing, I mean, people aren't going to be using the bus at all anyways. Regular bus nor non-mandated busing is going to be implicated by that going forward. So he did commit to coming into a meeting in July. So I would suggest that we also stay in a listening mode perhaps for this line as well until we can have a conversation with the district. Hopefully we can get the, you know, the ball rolling some more and talk about ways that, you know, John Byers did an admirable job laying out a phased approach to doing some modification here and opening up some more capacity with this line. So unless there is an objection, I would suggest that we continue our listening phase for that line as well. Anybody have any comments on non-mandated busing? All right. So our next question line item is line 210. And correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody sees a line item that is questioned, in addition to the ones I am mentioning, please let me know. So 210 is the Council on Aging Director. We had a question.
Yeah, I had a question on that.
Right.
So we have our director who is retiring. I believe from what we were told, she has somebody who's going to be stepping up, taking her place. I believe from within her department already.
That has changed, Chuck.
It has.
We are now advertising
Okay.
for someone to take that position.
Okay. Well, maybe that might change my question, because my question was going to be, she had wanted to stay on and train this person, and to me that sounds like somebody who might not be fully ready for a director position, and I was just going to question why we would bring somebody in at that same salary and then bump it up 2% before they're already doing the job. But I guess if we're advertising that, maybe that might make things a little different.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything on that line?
Frank, do we have a, in the advertisement, is it published? What, is it like a salary range?
No, there's no salary in the ad.
So do you think the intention would be that we would bring in a director, a new director who would get paid more than the current director?
Well, that would be something that would have to be addressed. Right now, the salary we have in the line for fiscal 21 is going to be her salary for 2 weeks of next year, because she's retiring on the, I believe, the 17th of July. However, the selection of a new director will require an analysis. I can tell you just from comparables that we're in the low 15 or 20% of the communities when it comes to salary for a director.
Okay.
And I think I think part of that is because of the limited operations our senior center has, and that is a consequence of our facility. I think if we had more room to grow and we were able to offer more programs, we would have a different view on this operation. But that's going to have to be determined based on, one, the funding that town meeting is willing to grant for that position, and two, what the Council on Aging Board feels is a reasonable offer that will bring someone qualified to do the job in.
Okay, further discussion on, that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay,
Was there,
go ahead, Rosemary.
was there talk about regionalizing the senior center with Abington, or was that the busing?
No, I actually met with the chairman of the Abington Board of Selectmen many years ago when they first opened their new building, which is, I guess, now 10 years old, maybe even 15. Time flies when you're not counting.
It's a new used building.
But at that time, there was interest on our part and on the part of the chairman of the Abington Board of Selectmen in regionalizing the COA. They had a great building, but limited staff and no transportation. We had a good staff, we had transportation, but no building to speak of. So it was a great match. We were doing it very quietly and off the radar until we could get some of the potential ideas worked out. But unfortunately, the then assistant town manager, who was opposed to the idea, went to the senior group in Abington and raised hell about thought of us and Whitman, thought of Whitman and Abington coming together in their center. So they completely killed it. There was absolutely no.
How many years ago was that, Frank?
That was when Barbara, just before Barbara became director. That would have been, gosh, 10 years ago, 11 years ago.
The town
I have spoken over the years with other town managers in Abington. And, you know, the senior community is a difficult group to pitch new ideas to. The seniors in Abington have a really strong sense of ownership of that building. However, we're on our third town manager in Abington, and the new guy may have an interest in that.
I think they're getting better.
Surprised
No doubt about that.
He's been hiding the whole time this conversation came up. He's tough guy.
Nothing, as I've always said, nothing's off the books. Rick and I are, Scott and I are actually have had some conversations about one of the programs we currently regionalize and another one that we might. But it takes time to put these things together.
Good question. All right. Any other discussion on line item 210 in Article 2? So the recommendation for, I'll entertain a recommendation for line item 210.
I will make a motion to recommend 210 to read as listed 69488.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second it. Kathleen.
Kathleen seconds it. So you have a motion and a second for Article 210 to read $69,488. Further discussion? We'll move to a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Dave? Scott?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Rosemary?
You're muted.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well.
That was a yes for Dave.
Thanks, Dave. So a 9-0 on line 210. The next question line item is 217. Animal Control Officer, question.
I think that was Al's question.
It is
Al, do you have a
actually.
question on animal
Yeah,
control?
just a question. What are we doing with it?
What are we doing with it?
Uh,
Right, can you answer
Is
that?
she back?
Well, yeah, she was out for a couple of months and then returned to work.
Are we still in workman's comp?
No,
Okay, good.
no, she was out for approximately 3 months.
Yeah.
And the assistant took over the position, right?
The assistant covered, but, well, we no longer have full-time and assistant. We have 2 ACOs, one is on-call days, one nights. And the night on-call officer took over both shifts for the period of time that the day officer was out. This is another area where we had previously regionalized, and it worked out pretty well until Hanson thought they could do better saving money. So they pulled out of the regional agreement, and the following year we just kind of disbanded it. But that's something I'm also going to be at least looking out to surrounding communities for, because I think we can do more if we can regionalize that.
Okay,
Fair enough.
thank you, Al.
Thank you, Frank.
Answer your question. Any other questions on this line item? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion for Article 2, line item 217.
I'll motion that to read 47,115.
Okay, we have a
Kathleen will
motion.
second.
Kathleen seconds, for line 217 to read $47,115. Further discussion? We'll move to a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, line item 218, question. Al, was that your question as well on the expense? More or less the same?
Which one was this at? 218 is.
218
same
is
thing. I'm good in animal control. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All
Any
right,
other
Rick.
questions? Yes, go ahead, Chuck.
No, I was just going to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I make a motion for line 218 to read $10,234.
Kathleen will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for line 218 to read $10,234. Further discussion? All in favor, John?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, the next question line item I have is on page 7, which is line 239, regarding the Recreation Department.
Rick, I think you had 234 that needed to be questioned as well,
Okay,
because the librarian had submitted a budget for 22,297, which I believe is what the Finance Committee voted. But she then submitted last couple of weeks ago a request for 25,069 for utilities and maintenance. So that's an increase. It's level funded over last year, but it's an increase over what you had previously voted.
okay, so just for refreshing my memory, I think when we met with the budget managers way back when, the effort was to reduce the total budget of the department.
Correct.
And that was probably one of those measures that was used, right? I would have.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess for the benefit of the committee, we'll have to take a vote, or I'll entertain a motion to rescind our vote on line 234 as it was accepted the last meeting.
I'll make that motion, John.
Kathleen will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to rescind the vote of the Finance Committee on line item 234. Further discussion? All in favor, John?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Rosemary.
Yes.
Okay, so the previous vote of the committee is rescinded. Now I'll entertain a motion on line 234.
I'll make a motion for line 234 to read $25,069.
Kathleen seconds.
We have a motion and a second for line 234 to read 25,069. Further discussion? Okay, we'll move to vote. John,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, so line down, now we'll go to line 239, director salary, recreation. Question.
Rick, I got a question, a couple of things, and probably the whole issue itself. Do we have a recreation program going on right now?
We do not. We suspended operations for the summer. In fact, I put an announcement out on that for the web a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Because we're just not in a position to meet the requirements that are necessary for a pool and park program. We are preparing schedules for use of fields, and the schedule involves limited use for practices initially, and then expanding to games, but with some limitations based on our concern for COVID. For example, when the kids are playing ball, there'll be no one in the dugout. They'll be seated with their families, appropriately distanced from one another players. So there's a lot involved in this that's going to happen over the next month or so. I have encouraged the Recreation Commission to start thinking about hiring a director, because we've got a lot of catch-up work to do in planning.
Right.
Get ahead. So I know they are going to have a discussion on that on June 30th.
How about the pool, Frank? Is that going to be closed down for the year, or we better
It's
closing
closed
it
for
down?
the season, yes.
Okay,
For
so,
two reasons.
right,
One is the ability to maintain the standards that the Department of Public Health has set.
yeah,
And the second reason is we have no money,
right,
and the pre-subscriptions we normally do in April and May to fund the summer programs have not happened.
right. You know, the other concerns me is we were recently, was it November, December, we were hit with a $10,000 bill, the town of Whitman, for a pool cover. Last minute in, was it November, December, Frank, that we didn't know about?
I think it was in late October.
Okay, October, November, we get it replaced.
It's a good thing we covered it.
Right, you know, so a lot of towns and municipalities don't have pools anymore. We got to protect the interest itself and find obviously a qualified recreation director that actually can bring in money for the town. And what are your thoughts on having a director that actually can bring in the money to actually manage it self-sufficiently without costing taxpayers money?
Well,
That's the Holy Grail.
What's that?
That's the Holy Grail.
It happens every other town, though. I've seen other towns, though. I've seen
No, it
towns,
doesn't
though.
now. Most towns put up a significant amount of money to maintain their programs. There are things we can generate revenue from.
Right.
In part, two examples.
Yeah.
But we have no funding for any other types of programs. And I think long-term, we're going to have to think about that.
Right.
Because I think the citizens of Whitman should be entitled to expect a full-service recreation plan. And we're not going to get one.
Right.
Everything is limited to generating local fees and paying the director 21 grand a year. So that's something we're really going to have to look at as we gear up next season.
No, I don't disagree with you, Frank, though, but I tell you, local little leagues, local lacrosse teams do the same thing. They raise their own monies and they pay for field usage fees and whatnot. So it can be done if you have even a
Well-
part-time director in there, you know?
Well, it certainly does on the fields, but
Absolutely.
I'm talking about the staffing and programs.
Same thing.
Yeah. So I think this is probably an item that's going to be near the top priority for the strategic planning. When we get
I
involved with
agree.
Yeah.
and the fact that, even the chairman of the Board of Selectmen has raised the question on many occasions on what kind of a community do we want to be? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is definitely one of the items that we need to take a look at and, decide which direction to go. Because right now we're really just languishing here with these, with the line items where they are.
Right.
No clear plan in the future. So. But,
Al
for this budget, I think.
What's that?
or Recreation Department Director.
I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely. The 32. Give me the whole line item budget. We'll take care of it. But we got the entitled budget is $32,674. You can get a lot with that. You can also bring in a lot more money and self-support itself if it's done right. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And,
Good point.
Hired.
thanks. But a few more years, but I'm retired. All right. I'm
Is
retired,
that
all
Al
right?
volunteering? Is that what you're saying, Samantha?
I would more than be happy to do it. I run it right. I run it right. All right.
Nice. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks for that suggestion. All
So,
right. So further discussion on this line, and just want to bring the committee to the fact that we are now passing the 2-hour mark. We do have articles that we're not going to be voting, line items on Article 2 that we're not going to be voting. So we can, work on this document at our next meeting. If you want to continue, I'm all right. Can keep going. Maybe we'll get through the recreation. We'll complete this page. It's up to the board. If the board feels strongly that they want to continue, there are really not many others beyond that.
Motion to adjourn?
Can I make this motion that line item 239, 240, and 242 be the amounts that are listed in the requested column for all of our FinCom recommendations? I don't know if I can do that.
I'll just read the lines and the numbers if that's
Yeah.
that is a motion. Do we have a
Yep.
second?
Chuck will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. For line 239 to read $21,574. For line 240 to read $5,000. For line 241 to read 0. For line 242 to read $32,674.
No.
6,000.
242 is $6,100.
Oh, sorry.
32
Oh,
is the
sorry.
total.
That was a total.
Correct.
You just got a great recreation department with that one.
That's why I wanted it.
See how things
I'll
happen?
apply.
Let's go.
All right. So I'm just going to reread line 242 to read $6,100.
There you go.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Further discussion on these 4 lines.
Just
Seeing
one
none?
quick
Oh,
One
go
quick
ahead.
question. Obviously, if things don't develop and these lines don't get spent, and in the end, it goes back to the general fund, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so
I-
now, Rosemary, did you want?
Is that the full salary for the year? Is that broken down to?
That's a month, isn't it? That's a month, isn't it, Frank?
That is the annual salary.
That's the annual salary. So it obviously, if we're okay.
Part-time.
Okay, all right, so here we're ready to vote. John,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Rosemary.
Yes.
Did we lose Dave? Dave here?
Yes.
Okay, Dave.
Yes, I'm here, and yes, vote.
Okay, Ralph, did I get you?
Yes.
Okay, did I get everyone? I vote yes as well. Okay, so those lines are now accepted. And back to the agenda. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up? Our next meeting is posted. Oh, I lost it.
Sorry, I stopped the share.
You stopped the meeting?
I stopped the share.
Rick's got Rick's got the bewildered look.
I don't have anything on my screen.
Rick,
It's there somewhere.
do not.
It's
I may
under,
not be available on the 30th, so you
All
might
right.
wanna talk about 245 and
244.
244 and 245.
Okay,
I'll start my 244 question.
And
all
Al,
right, hold on, I'll put it back up.
no, don't. I'm gonna
No.
put up a
No,
document.
let's not. Let's go table it.
Okay.
John, how do I get my screen back? I have nothing.
All right.
Go to your
All-
icons in the bottom.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
All I did is stop the
Oh,
share, so.
I lost everything. I'm back. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me start a share. Because I don't have my glasses on, so it may take me a minute to find it. Oh, for God's sake. There we go. Okay. I knew this was going to be a topic for discussion.
Yeah, so
Moment.
Frank, I know what the line is for. I understand, but that's quite a bit of money. Are you expecting to expend all that this year?
Well, that's why I
Oh,
want.
hello.
I hope not.
You had to end the meeting like
I
this?
am
Rick?
expecting.
Wow.
There's only 2 people retiring that we know of.
Four.
Not if you look at the chart I just
There's
put up.
4.
40 grand.
Oh,
Right
okay.
now, as of right now, this is what I know. There could be others
Wow.
because they're not required to give us significant advance notice.
Okay.
There is the potential for a few other people to retire, but so far, I have not received confirmation from anyone other than these names currently listed. And this is the potential. It could be less, depending on usage. I know the first one, his resignation indicated that he wouldn't be taking any vacation and will be leaving August 30th. Barbara, the second line, that's the entitlement as of July 1st. That person will be leaving July 13th. The next one is planning on leaving 11/1, may or may not use some of that time. And then myself, I just put a date in there. I'm going to meet with the board next week and talk about when I can escape, but the fact of the matter is right now, I will be closing this year, turning back 19 days of vacation. I gave back 17 the previous year. So it is likely that the number that's there is what I'm going to end up with.
So Frank, you're not retiring on September 30th?
I would like to do that. I don't know.
Okay, so line item 244 reads 42,355, so.
So when I took that number, what I did was I did a rough estimate of what I was aware would be coming up within the year. In 2019, we paid almost 60,000 in unused vacation. In 2020, we paid 2,000. Yeah. In the current year, we paid 101,178.
We remember.
Yeah.
Chuck?
We have changed our personnel policy, and over time, we hope to see movement in our collective bargaining agreements that will address some of these issues, like, for example, earning time monthly as opposed to being granted vacation time on the 1st of July. For non-union persons hired after, I think it was January 1st, 2020, vacation is accrued monthly. While they can use it during the year, they don't fully earn the 12-month vacation until 30th. So that will eliminate some of this front-loaded expense when people leave while still entitled to vacation pay.
So the reason they're expended 2019, 2020s are in a box is because that was really never part of Article 2 in the past.
No, but it's a representation
Right.
of what was spent.
Absolutely. And it was a recommendation really from the auditors that we have some type of a long-term funding mechanism within Article 2 to address the ongoing need.
So just a quick follow-up comment on my part. That's good to hear those policies. I know they do that a lot in a lot of private companies. That's the way you accrue the vacation. And as far as collective bargaining, I've heard some of the selectmen say that they might need to do some hard bargaining in the days ahead. And I hope that they can spearhead the effort to try to bargain this type of thing with the unions.
Well, collective bargaining is an interesting process in a state like Massachusetts, where you have a very strong collective bargaining bias in the legislature. I mean, if you look at some agencies, for example, police and fire, the Proposition 2.5 prevents agreements that carry mandatory bargaining. So not mandatory bargaining, but what am I looking for? Awards, arbitration, thank you. Under Prop 2.5, you can't have mandatory arbitration. In other words, we bargain with the union, we bargain to impasse, we say, here's our best offer, boom. For public safety, they have a thing known as the JLMC, the Joint Labor Management Commission. And under those rules, if we don't reach agreement, we are mandatorily required to bargain in an arbitration process and then bring that arbitration back to town meeting for funding. So it's there in some sort. When you bargain, certainly you want to treat people fairly. The perspective from the town should be, we want to be reasonable and give decent salaries and benefits, but we have some concerns about controlling costs. From the union side, it's looking for protection and commitment and gains. So typically, every quid has a pro. If you want to get something back, the first question is going to be, well, what are you going to give us?
What are you going to give? Yeah.
And it's very easy to say, we're going to make these changes. It's a lot harder to actually do it.
Yeah, that's true. All right, thank you for the info.
Okay, good questions. Anybody else? Any other questions on this line? Line 244. I'll entertain a motion on 244.
Chuckle motion 244 to read 42355.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Kathleen will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote. John?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So we also welcome Lisa Green is here as well. I thought we were going to stop, but while we have Lisa here, if we want to move to the next question line, it is regarding street lighting, of which Lisa has a really good working knowledge. So, and then the last one on page 8 is regarding the debt service, which was the last question item. So maybe we could get the answer on that one as well if we have questions while Frank is here as well. So So with indulgence to the committee to continue on, I'll entertain what we have questions for 245.
Is this regarding the street lighting, Rick?
It is street lighting, yes.
Now, was this appropriated? Did the town approve the $200,000 worth of street lighting?
Question, Lisa, do you want to address,
At
right now,
town
we're
meeting.
looking at line
At
245 to read
town meeting.
100,000.
She has no microphone.
Lisa, you're muted.
No, she just typed in, she has no microphone. She
Oh,
can only
has
do
a
it.
microphone. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, Al, let me address the question. The town voted
Yeah,
a year and a half ago
right. That's what I thought.
to purchase the street lights.
Right.
So, over a period of time, we actually we purchased the lights and converted them to LED. It was expected that would save us significant money. So if you look at 2019, we spent 169,000. This year, we're going to spend less than 100,000. In point of fact, we just got a check back from National Grid for $60,000 for reimbursements for payments we made that they were billing us for, but they weren't entitled to receive.
Now, is that more money, Frank, than our last meeting before you were going to get more details on that? I think it was a lot more. You're talking about now reimbursement?
Well, no, this has nothing to do with litigation. This is just streetlight expense.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This is for the power to. This is for the electrical for the street.
Yes. So
correct. This has nothing to do with the light purchase.
Is the power that we use on the street lights, and we will have to pay to maintain those lights. So we have a bid. Actually, I think the bid is due tomorrow.
Right.
We've advertised for contractors to bid on the annual maintenance of the street lights, because now that we own them, we have to replace them, we have to repair them. But I think in total, the budget that I'm asking for, which is $100,000, should more than adequately cover those costs.
Right. I mean, our last meeting minutes was saying that we're waiting for reimbursement from someone, Frank. I'm just curious.
Yeah, we got it. So it was
okay. That's it. That's all we got.
Yep, that's all we were expecting.
That's all I want to know, Frank.
But remember, down the road.
Yeah. Now we all know we have to maintain them.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but down the road, we have a potential action against National Grid.
Okay.
We were sold a pig in a poke.
Right.
The wiring that was in those lights was substandard. And as a result of that, we had to hire a company to go back and rewire.
And we had to pay for it, right? That's where I'm going at right now.
We paid for that. And
Right.
we're looking for National Grid
Yeah.
to make us whole. So far, their position has been, this was an as-is sale.
Yeah.
You accept them as is.
Do we have a lawyer on that?
Well, we will. We can't we're in COVID. We're pretty much everything stayed until.
Lawyers do everything behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all.
Well, at some point, yes, we will have a lawyer involved.
How much are we talking? I'm just curious. How much are we talking?
In excess of 100,000.
There'll be plenty of lawyers in Whitman. We'll do it, per diem. So.
Well, we have to get to the point where we're in court, and we're not there yet. National Grid isn't reachable right now.
Okay.
I would love to solve it. Until all this other stuff settles, we don't even have use of the courts.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Al, for your questions.
Regroup.
Thank you, Frank, for your answers. And
appreciate it, Frank. Thank you.
All right. So further questions then on line 245. Do we have a motion and a second? Is that correct? No, we do not.
No, not yet.
Let's get a motion. Go ahead.
Chuck will motion line 245 to read 100,000.
Kathleen will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for line 245 to read $100,000. Further discussion? We'll move to a vote. John?
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, so that leaves the items that we skipped over, and then one other line that was questioned was 261C. And this is the debt service for the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District. Frank, do you want to comment on the fact that this was incorrectly calculated?
Yes, it was originally calculated using the prior year's student count. They then calculated our share of the debt using the October 1st population, and the number becomes 437,649.
Okay, so to my recollection, we didn't vote this just to get further clarification.
No, we originally voted a higher number. I mean, a lower number, I'm sorry. It was off by a couple of thousand.
Okay, but I think I have this circled as a question line item. Does anybody recall not questioning this?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I
So
asked you to mark.
okay, so then we'll entertain a motion to rescind the previous vote, just to be sure.
Right.
Okay,
I'll move that motion.
okay. Kathleen, motion.
Chuck will second.
We have a motion and a second to rescind the previous vote on line 261C. Further discussion? John,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So the previous vote is rescinded. I'll now entertain a motion for the line.
I'll make a motion for 437,649 for 261C.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for line 261C to read $437,649. Further discussion on the line? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. John,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. That does it for the question line items, unless someone has any other one. We still have two that we got to return to.
Oh,
We're in the listening phase for both the lines 175 and 178. But we have a new place setter for 175. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments regarding our work on Article 2? I appreciate the fact that everybody has made all of the meetings. It's very important that we all have a voice in these recommendations to the voters. So other business communications, we did receive a communication from the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District, and it basically is from the treasurer of the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District, David Leary, and it just is the notification of the votes of the school committee on May 18th to amend the 1991 regional agreement and approve the district operating budget. So it also included the wording for the amendment. So that is a communication we'll put in the file for the meeting minutes. On the upcoming meetings, we have no meeting next week. And then we have a meeting scheduled for June 30th, July 7th, July 21st, which should give us plenty of time to follow up on the last few items on Article 2. And also, if the board would entertain, I will invite the superintendent to come to one of those meetings. I'll give him the dates for them all and see which one he can attend.
Can I ask, there was, in last week's Express, there was a resident from Hanson who posted a question to the Finance Committee in the Whitman-Hanson Express. Did anyone see that?
I did.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, it's unusual for us to respond to a question in an article, but are you suggesting that that's something we send a letter to?
Well, I was just wondering if anyone saw it and if they
I
were
did.
going to respond to it.
It was
ahead, Rosemary.
directed towards the finance committee. It was
Yes.
direct, I
Right.
think, I don't
Yeah.
know what town they're from, but it was directed towards our finance.
Samantha, can you tell us what it was all about? I didn't see it.
It was applauding the efforts of Kathleen for posting her information and then asking for a little bit more information. So I just didn't know if the finance committee members saw it.
Yeah, the question was specifically what Hanson residents were part of the regional agreement amendment committee was the question. So if you, I certainly will respond, but I figured that Hanson would probably respond before then. So there is a possibility that the chairman of the Hanson Board of Selectmen is going to be running an editorial or an op-ed piece in this week's Express. So I think there'll probably be an opportunity for a rebuttal to that too. So once we see that article, I'm certainly prepared to respond. So, but yes, Samantha, that's a good point. There should be some opportunity to reach out and answer the question. So.
Could we include, oh, sorry, Samantha.
Sorry, Rosemary. Just because she directed it to the Whitman Finance Committee and it was positive,
Right.
I thought it would benefit the Whitman Finance Committee to respond to her rather than waiting for the Hanson Finance Committee or the, anybody
Right.
in Hanson to provide.
I agree that we should embrace any positive information that comes out, but it's doubtful that the person who wrote the article is tuning into the finance committee meetings. It's possible, but I'll certainly find out who that person is and respond. Go ahead, Rosemary.
In our rebuttal, we can make note to that particular person, to anything that we have to address to the Hanson selectmen. We could also address any the question and thank her for her.
Yes, Rosemary. I just hold it, Rick, to be honest with you, and don't respond.
Yeah.
That's all.
So the letter from the Hanson selectmen was to include what Kathleen explained was, her tables and explaining how she ended up at her calculation. So that's what the Board of Selectmen in Hanson took exception to and called the information false and misleading. So I think that's going to be the crux of the selectmen's editorial in this week's Express, but I can't surmise.
We don't know that yet, though, Rick, right? We don't know that yet, right?
We don't know that yet. That is correct.
Right.
So that's just good information from Samantha that we will follow up on that answer.
Everybody here understands the simple math that fairly simple math that Kat used to get those. It's not complex.
It's an analysis. I think the important thing is it's an analysis. And when Jesse said that this isn't our information, they took that to mean that it was misinformation, which was wrong to be, put in that light. That's all. So we're very thankful, Kathleen, that you took the time to analyze the information and put it in a format which people can understand.
Thank you, Rick.
Absolutely, Kathleen.
I also want to thank Kathleen because this is your field and you're an expert in this, and you donated your time and effort that we would have paid a lot of money to pull that together. So I want to thank you for that, and I'm sorry that's been misrepresented as something else.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anybody have anything that they would like to bring up under new business, other business? Okay, again, I appreciate everybody's participation. Frank, thank you for being available to answer questions. John, for running the meeting as usual. And you all for participating. We'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So we'll go around the table. John,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Al,
Yes, Rick.
Chuck,
Yes, sir.
Dave,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Rosemary.
Yes.
Thanks,
Good night.
Dan. Thanks, Lisa.
Okay, thank you, John. Thanks, Frank.